Spotlight is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. It seeks to spotlight people, places, and events from around the Diocese of Youngstown that promote the new gospel of joy called for by Pope Francis. Your program host is Father James Korda.
Welcome to this edition of Spotlight. I'm Father Jim Korda. Today we're going to talk about prison ministry. And to help me in our discussion is Tom Rudnicki and Alan Ricks. It's such a pleasure to have you both on the show today.
Well, thank you, Father, for having us.
You know, I had a pleasure of talking with you, Tom, about prison ministry on wineskins, and I'm glad that you brought Alan with us. Prison ministry is what I would consider kind of a new ministry in the church. Before we really get into our discussion about it, I'd like to ask each of you what, first of all, got you interested in it? Why were you drawn to ministry in the prisons? Tom?
Well, I had a friend of mine, Anthony Kobach, who had started the ministry actually at OSP, and he was looking for help to disseminate the Eucharist. And so he put a little note in the bulletin over at Holy Family, and I saw that. And I knew that Father Shorey had a ministry out there for a number of years. So that's sort of what got me involved in it. I knew that he had had some good experiences out there, and that Father had done some work there. So that's how I got involved.
And now, how about you? How did you get involved? Was it through other people who were also involved, or was that something you felt drawn to?
Well, a little of both, Father. I had I've been trying to search for some ministries and have been doing some work with the diocese. And as Tom mentioned, Anthony Kobach, he seems to be the evangelist on prison ministry. I was at a men's fellowship program over at St. Thomas Aquinas High School, and Anthony was witnessing. And I was already looking at the ministry, but that sort of pushed me over the top. But I was looking for something to challenge me in a ministry, try to do something, something a little uncomfortable, but you have to push me a little toward getting a little closer to my faith.
I'd like us to talk about the process. You know, you don't just all of a sudden say, I'm going to go visit people in prison. There's an actual process that you go through, and also there's learning, education. Try to walk us through some of the steps that you went through. If there's folks that are with us that might be interested in that ministry, what can they expect?
Well, we start out with probably an interview with Mike O'Brien, who's our administrator at the diocese, and we would vet the person that, for instance, would want to come into the program through Mike, and then I would probably meet as a coordinator, would meet with that person, and that's sort of what happened to me too, although Mike was not there at the time. We had another individual, but we sort of met together. And then we would be brought usually for a visit into the OSP so that the individual would get a little feel for the surroundings there. And then if they're interested in moving forward, then there is some background checks that our friends at OSP have to go through, with a little bit of bureaucracy there. And then there's actually a 4-hour training program once you're vetted by the OSP. And then after that, I would normally take the person through a number of additional visits, to get into the ministry, to see what we do, maybe bring them to a mass and so forth, just to get a feel for the ministry. And then if they're interested in moving forward, like Al was, then we move forward with that. And we're certainly looking for people to get into that ministry. It's a real blessing to go in there and work with the guys.
I'd like to ask Al, what was your first experience when you started the process, and what did you discover about yourself as you were learning more about how to minister in the prisons?
Well, the first exposure, I had the benefit of meeting with Joe Miles, who was Mike O'Brien's predecessor, and Tom, and spent an hour and a half with them talking about what to the expectations. And then I spent some time. Then I went to the prison. I made the decision early on that I was going to do this. It wasn't really a trial. I certainly, after a meeting with Tom and Joe, I wanted to proceed. So I spent some time with Tom, several weeks. Went with Tom and assisted him, or went around, made the rounds in the prison, and I think that it just my faith, it just really touched my faith. I just really felt actually closest to God when I'm in prison. I'm standing there with the steel door, and the prisoners on the other side. In my particular case, there's some open involvement in personal contact. So it was just something my faith drew me to, and I just feel I've grown in my faith, and certainly it's been a wonderful experience.
I remember you talked about your ministry towards them and how it has strengthened your faith and so forth. And I remember something that Tom had said a while ago in one of our former discussions, that the people in prison sometimes long for this human contact, and they don't always, unfortunately, get it because of their situation. So what does this human contact mean to them, but also to you?
Yeah, it's extremely important there. Most of the prisoners there are level 5 or level 4, and they cannot have human contact with their families. And that is a real big issue with them. They strive, it's one of the leverages that the prison has to improve their behavior so that they can actually at some point go to a lower level where they can have visits. And I didn't realize how meaningful that was to these individuals until we had the handshake of peace at one of the masses where they opened the porthole. They actually, at that time, they let us actually put our hands in there and shake hands. And one young man said, "This is the first time that anybody had shook my hand in 5 years." So that gives you an idea how they long for it and how human beings long for you. That was certainly an enlightenment to me, and it really bonds you with the guys when you can have that contact, that human contact. And
they spend 8 hours a day out of their cell. 8 hours. I'm sorry, 8 hours a week. 8 hours a week out of their cell. Mm-hmm. And so that human contact is important, whether it's a chaplain there or a Catholic minister, such as we do. But that's very special, and they generally have they're very happy to see us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've got about 2 minutes left of our first segment. The one thing that I've always experienced, and I've been not necessarily full-blown prison ministry, but I've gone to visit parishioners in prison. There's a sense that we minister to them, but they really minister to us as well.
Right.
Isn't that your experience?
Absolutely. I think that even not even conversing, but just their presence and just the fact that we do a gospel reading or some reading from the Bible, and then we do a reflection, offering Holy Eucharist. But it's that connection. It's that eye connection. It's not necessarily in words, but absolutely that's true. I feel the same thing.
It's amazing sometimes at the homilies, and the priests are not normally, but they'll have feedback during the homily. They'll make a comment, and some of them are very literate and have studied the Bible. So it's really an interesting thing. It's really a good boost to our faith when we come in there and we start preaching to them a little bit and doing reflections, and they come back with us and saying, we get it, and how about this thought, how about this idea, this faith statement. So it's impressive. It definitely is. As Al said, it's a two-way street between us and them, and we certainly get as much out of it as we give, I think. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And just to remark that this is one of 5 prisons in the diocese. Right. Not all prisons are at this level. This is supermax.
This is supermax.
So this is a little different. When other prisons I have not done prison ministry, and others where there's more of a gathering and an open forum. So there are several levels, but this is certainly the one that we experience.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but we're going to take a quick break. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
I spent 34 years as a teacher.
For the first 10 minutes of teaching, I was terrified, and then I fell in love with it.
I am so grateful that teaching was my ministry. It was such a gift.
Many sisters, brothers, and religious order priests served for little pay.
One year, I had a classroom of 68 children.
I was chaplain for the ice hockey team and loved it, even the 6:30 a.m. practices.
Today, hundreds of religious communities lack retirement funds.
I loved helping the kids stage musicals.
Gifts to the Retirement Fund for Religious help provide for medications, nursing care, and more.
Back then, we didn't earn much. but seeing a child learn was really priceless.
Please give to those who have given a lifetime. Donate at your local parish.
Thank you, and God bless you.
I don't think like you.
I don't laugh at the same jokes as you.
I don't speak like you.
I don't eat the food you do.
I don't celebrate the same holidays as you.
But I will help save your life.
When you help the American Red Cross, you help America.
Welcome back to Spotlight. We're talking about prison ministry with Tom Rudnicki and Al Ricks. You know, before we took the break, we're talking about how we minister to those in prison, but they also minister to us. I'd like to, and unfortunately I'm going to do this, but kind of play the devil's advocate. I'm sure there are people that might be watching that say, well, why would you ever want to go into a prison in the first place? They've done this terrible thing, whatever it is, they should be locked up. Why do we need to do this? Why, as church, as Christians, are we drawn to this?
Well, I think it's certainly an important point of the corporal acts of mercy and works of mercy, and I think that they're people that have forgotten, and I think that generally is at least my heart goes out to them, is that these are men that society has casted out and or outcast, that is. And I think it's they need some help, and they've made mistakes, as we all have made mistakes. So we try to be a little more merciful, and I think that's a challenge, but yet also an opportunity.
And I think the other thing is one of the things that we like to do, at least on Spotlight, is to kind of dispel myths. You know, we get this sense that everyone in prison has done horrible things that they can never be forgiven for, but those are myths that really do not hold true, because they're people like you and me, but unfortunately have made a mistake. And yet there's this whole sense that isn't the institution and isn't the ministry all about reform, rehabilitation, change,
Right.
Love, forgiveness.
Right.
How do you experience that, Tom, when you go into prisons and experience people on a one-to-one basis, almost on a daily basis when you do that?
Yeah. Well, forgiveness is something that we certainly preach all the time. And we have our Father Ed Noga and Father Joe Rujek both come in and do confessions on a regular basis. And we certainly stress the forgiveness, a second chance. We have the second chance prayer that we do. And they're looking for that. You know, some of those, when we first get the new guys in, and maybe they're not Catholic, and they're interested in becoming Catholic. And I said, well, you know, the Lord forgives. And sometimes that's a concept that they don't grasp too easily. And once they get it, then it is very meaningful to them in their lives. If somebody can give them a second chance, and we certainly stress that when we talk to them, that, you know, at some point, now some of the guys will never get out of prison, but others, most, will get out. Mm-hmm. So we always stress, hey, your family contacts, stay involved with, especially if they have a person, a lot of them have grandmothers and mothers that are religious. Talk to them, write to them. If you have somebody that you've have a problem, a dispute with, write to them, call them, get that, you know, ask for a second chance, ask for forgiveness, and move forward, because they're going to be out on the street, many of these guys, and we want to stress that and stress that they will have a career, hopefully, after they get out, and that they'll follow their faith that they've encompassed in the prison and move forward with it.
And, you know, how important is it for us to give that second chance, you know, and sometimes a third and fourth chance, you know, because those things are afforded to us free persons on a daily basis in many different ways that we don't remember or even fully understand. But there's that whole sense that unless we do this, unless we extend the forgiving hand of Christ, then what are we all about?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
if we can't forgive, how can we ask for forgiveness?
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about the families. In your experiences, do you come into contact with the prisoner's family at all, or is that something that's not part of the equation?
Well, on occasion, for instance, the bishop will be coming in on April 26th this year to do baptisms and confirmation. And we will sometimes facilitate the movement of the people, because many times they come from a distance. We try to assist them, even financially, with some of the gas cards and so forth, to get them in here. So I will talk to those individuals, and they're always very supportive of what we're doing there. And they encourage that, and it's just overwhelming to see how the families respond to us when we call them, and they can't believe that we would facilitate this, because these visits are special. When they can have a contact visit after these sacraments, they allow us to do that. So that's really a big privilege, and they really appreciate it. They know that we have facilitated this. So we do have a little bit of a bond. Not a lot on a day-to-day basis. The chaplain there acts as if there's a death in the family, they would facilitate that between the families and us. But we have a few occasions where we will talk to the families, and it's an important part. And they always show us their pictures of their families, and that's a big part of getting them through the day, you know.
Mm-hmm. And Ellen, your experience of the ministry that you've had there, what has been some of the things that really has touched your heart? Any particular story or any personal experience that you've had with any one of the inmates that has helped you understand that this is really an important ministry in the church?
Well, I can recall a conversation with a young man who was going to go through RCIA and has decided to back out for the currently, but I still see him. But he had, before going into prison, he had a child. His wife had a child. They had a child, and has never seen that daughter. And the only way he has contact is through his mother or a friend that makes sure that the daughter's in contact with him. But the wife has nothing to do. We'll keeps the daughter away from him. That's one example. But I think that some of them reflect on just a lot of them have relatives that they try to stay in touch with, and it's sad because it's just long term. And one young man, 24 years old, will be in for life, and those types of experiences, just talking to them and the struggles, and it's very touching.
And I would think in your experiences that you each have different stories and not everyone's the same. It's almost like every situation is different. Mm-hmm. And while there's some commonalities, there's something that's unique and particular of each of the inmates and each of the people who go in to minister as well. What about, and we want to close this segment briefly, but when we come back, I'd like us to talk about that support staff, those people that work in prison. Mm-hmm. Let's see what their role is. And also, let's talk more about what people who are listening who want to get involved in this ministry, what do they do? We're going to take a break first. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I am Marino. Yo soy Marino.
Marino, an American Catholic organization of priests and brothers, has been reaching out to those in need for nearly 100 years in 26 countries throughout the world. Missioners, workers, volunteers, supporters, we are all Marino.
I'm Father Mike, and I am Marino.
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 By the time we can walk, each of us yearns for the joy that comes from being able to do for ourselves. Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, share the joy. Church World Service.
Welcome back to our show. We're talking about prison ministry. Before we took the break, I was curious about those people who work in the prison. Do you have any involvement or communication with them? And what involvement do they have with the inmates?
Of course, we work for Deputy Warden Palmer, who is in charge of religious services. And underneath him, there's actually a full-time chaplain there that they have that we work with that helps. And they're both, and also Warden Remick, who's head of security there, has also been very helpful over the years with us and support us tremendously. And the chaplain is a big supporter of us also. So, and we deal with the other religious groups that come in there. There's some Protestant woman that comes in there, a very saintly woman that comes in there in a very difficult situation. So those are the things. And then, of course, the administration beyond that, the COs that we deal with. Many of them are Catholics, and we've always find that they seem to be more helpful with us, and they realize what we're in there for. But not just the Catholic. There's some that are very religious, the correction officers that help us and guide us through the things. So that's been a really wonderful experience, and they've been very supportive of us. They really have.
What if there are people that are watching that would like to be involved? What would you tell them, and how would you go about getting them more involved, or like heightening the awareness of how important this ministry is?
Well, I think that it's important to challenge ourselves in our faith and to really reach and go beyond our comfort zone, the circle we all have around us, and push ourselves a little bit. And so if anyone is interested in challenging themselves and going to the next level, I think considering prison ministry or some other work of mercy is very important. It truly brings a closer feeling in the presence of God, I think, and it's just once you do it, you understand, and I think it's just take the step forward. And
we know that many of our parishes within the diocese are involved. The Ursuline Sisters are involved. How are they involved, and what more can they do?
Well, they're involved in our RCIA program. We recently, they were involved prior to that in terms of letter writing and sending cards, and also some of the sisters have had long-term relations in speaking to them, talking to their families. But recently, we reached out to ask them to help us in the RCIA program for the non-Catholics as far as converting to Catholicism. And they've embraced that, and they review the homework. There's a book that we use, a booklet that we use for prison RCIA. And they help us and write letters and write notes and do an excellent job. Matter of fact, they're going to be at the baptism and confirmation later this month with Bishop Murray, and as godparents and as sponsors for confirmation. So we really rely on them as well.
Very good. Now, you got involved, Tom, through the parish. What would you encourage other parishes to do or to consider if they're not involved?
We would be happy to go there and speak at the parishes. We had talked about doing that in some of the parishes, and Anthony and Al, of course, they're both excellent speakers. We would be happy to go to any parish and talk about the ministry, and really, because I don't think people understand. A lot of times they don't even understand that we do have the Ohio Penitentiary here in the Youngstown area and Supermax Prison. They don't really understand that it's here, or they forget that it's here. And it's really an opportunity to show a lot of compassion. And I would be happy to come and speak anywhere to any group, and we have done a little bit of that, and we'd like to do some more of that. But if anybody's interested in getting involved in our ministry, certainly Mike O'Brien at the diocese is our director, and he would be the first contact, and we would encourage anybody to get involved in that they feel that they want to have this as a statement of faith to move forward.
What would be some of the fears that people might have? I talked about the myths that we want to dispel. What are some of the fears that people might have that you could assuage and say you really don't have to feel that way going into a prison?
Well, I think the fear is, first of all, that there just the institution itself and the presence of the security, and these are bad people, but they're humans, and as mentioned before, we've all made mistakes. They've just made a few more maybe, but in any case, I think that it's once you go once or twice, it feels. You don't have that feeling at all. I mean, there's a lot of compassionate people in the prison system, both staff and the COs, as he mentioned, which are the correction officers. There are a lot of them. but and some of them are very compassionate, and so it really is not a bad place. It's an institutional facility, and you just have to try it, and believe me, it didn't concern me at all, even the first time I went there.
You know, my experience of ministry is that it's kind of a two-way street. Mm-hmm. We who minister do it because we feel called to do it. Mm-hmm. And we hope and we trust that the ministry that we extend to someone else is being received. And I mentioned this earlier on, what about what we get in return? Isn't that sometimes more important? What we feel about ourselves, and you know, you had mentioned about a priest giving a homily during a service in the prison, and the interaction and the dialogue that takes place. Right. You know, what do they give back to you?
Well, it's just a blessing when we go in there. We go in there and we meet these individuals, and they've been in their cell 23 and a half hours a day, and you go up to the cell, and all you do is look into a little window there, and that's all that's their only output to the Word, and you walk up to them in the morning, and they're smiling. What a blessing that is. Mm-hmm. You know, that they're just grateful to see you. They're grateful to receive the Eucharist. Many of them kneel down when we give it, very reverent. You know, it's just a very impressive. It sounds like it would be a difficult situation, but it's just so much of a blessing to see these people with joy in their hearts, with joy of the Lord in their hearts, that they've accepted the Lord, and that the Lord has given this peace in their heart, and they're moving forward with their lives, even in the extremely difficult situations. And that's really what I get out of it. It just that feedback, just the Spirit of the Lord shines through that door, and you know, and it's just unbelievable, really.
And Al, you have a closing statement you'd like to make. Would you like to read that for us?
Yes. I think if anyone is interested in challenging themselves and really reaching deeper into their faith and looking for a path of discipleship, considering prison ministry, I think, is very rewarding. It's truly it brings you to a closer presence with God. And really walking in the path of Christ. And what would Jesus, often I say to myself, what would Jesus do? And I think it's very rewarding, and I would say even beyond comprehension. That experience and that ministry, this ministry of prison ministry, is a very, very touching and really promotes you, really helps you with your faith.
Well, Al Ricks, Tom Rudnicki, thank you so much for enlightening us about prison ministry. It's an important ministry within the church. We encourage the folks that are with us, if they would like to get more involved, contact their parish or call the diocese. There's certainly room in that fellowship for that kind of ministry. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you for having us, Father. Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
Spotlight has been a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Korda.